Hey there, welcome to the DFS Build NBA edition. I'm Kevin Roberts, joined with Taylor Smith. We are fully into NBA. No more NFL. Super Bowl 59 is in the books, so we're moving full speed ahead. And of course, not that long after that, we're going to be running into the All-Star break. But we're going to try to win some money while we can, and hopefully offering this free advice in this video breakdown can be a big part of that. You can also join our Discord for free. Come in and get a little bit of advice from everybody in there, including us, leading up to lock, as well as our core plays. If you play at FanDuel specifically, we are offering a FanDuel picks package, reasonably priced over at Patreon. And if you want to play DraftKings night slates, we're also offering a small package for that too. If you want to help us out, you can like this video and subscribe to the channel. Helps us get a little bit more exposure on YouTube. And if you subscribe, it lets you get alerted to any other videos we end up doing. We cover NBA every single day, and we will be covering MLB when that rolls around too. All right, so the way we do this, we go position by position, highlighting the top plays that we like from top to bottom, and pointing out things like ownership, matchups, and projections, and also factoring in player usage, all the fun stuff that you don't need to worry about quite as much because we're doing it for you. All right, up top, SGA leads the way with the best projection among point guards, followed closely behind by Dame Lillard, but Lillard picked up a Q tag midday, which is pretty ominous, never a good thing. So when we start there, Taylor, are you paying for SGA at 10.8K, and how do you feel about the Dame news?
Yeah, I mean, I'm assuming he's going to be out. Not going to build that way just yet because it's pretty early, but whenever these guys get Q tagged, for Milwaukee specifically on the second half of a back-to-back, it's pretty ominous for their chances to play. So I'm assuming he's not going to be in. As of now, with him projected in, he looks awesome. Without Dame, they're playing Golden State, so it should be a competitive game in theory. Price came up a little bit, but not enough. Like, he's had a monster ceiling without Giannis, so I think I might have said without Dame. I meant without Giannis, but either way, great play. Not really getting to SGA as much. I assume they're going to nuke the Pelicans, who are pretty shorthanded tonight. He's a fine play. He projects well. It's just I'm kind of prioritizing guys like Wemby. Jokic is on the slate, so SGA at a similar price point, not really on my radar, which is a little bit frightening.
Yeah, even blowout risk aside, he's almost 11K, and there's two other guys that are about there or even more expensive that I just would rather have. If you want to play currently unowned SGA in a smash spot against the Pels, I don't have any problem with that, especially if Dame ends up being out. It's just one more good option off the table. But it is what it is. He's very expensive, and OKC is at full strength at this point. So do you want to pay for SGA with a little bit less usage in a blowout risk environment at almost 11K? I don't really want to right now, but he's always in play. Dame, obviously, he's awesome at 9.2K. His price went down. He had 69 fantasy points yesterday. But the fact that he's a vet and there's no Giannis and he just played yesterday, I'm with you. I think he's not going to play here. So we can certainly look at the value there. KBJ and Ryan Rollins will be the next guys up at the point. I would just trust in whoever starts. I would imagine that'd be KPJ at this point. He's kind of just the more talented player.
I feel like it would be Rollins just because KPJ is new and probably doesn't have a firm grasp on what they're doing. I just feel like Rollins is more likely to start. I assume KPJ would have a role. I would just be surprised if he started right away.
Okay, so even if that is the case, what is your trust level here, even if the game stays close? Like Rollins is what, 3K? And then KPJ is 4K. I mean, I feel like KPJ is like the more trustworthy guy if they're both playing, but if we don't really know the minutes, it's kind of hard to feel great about either of them, right?
They're both good per minute, so I feel better about it than I would if they were just like random weaklings who were getting more minutes. But KPJ, like, I assume Rollins is going to start, so I feel okay about it at 3.5. If KPJ is off the bench at 4K, that's kind of a tougher sell. Like, they still have Portis, they still have Kuz, they still have Lopez to a lesser extent to get usage. Gary Trent gets usage.
Yeah,
I'm sure KPJ will be hunting a shot, and that makes him a good tournament play. I just don't know how much confidence you can have. Did he actually play yesterday? Do you know?
Yeah, I think he got 13 minutes.
Yeah, so I'd be surprised if after a small role like that, he suddenly started and got like 30. So I just assume it would be Rollins, and I'd feel pretty good about him.
So two things. Number one, fair, but Kuz did not start in his debut, and they did start the next day, or the next game. So I wouldn't say it's completely impossible. I will say, though, I would probably only really trust the guy who does end up starting. If it's Rollins at 3.5K, you can take that gamble because he's really cheap, and he has started games for Milwaukee before. If it's KPJ, $500 more, but I would love him there for sure.
KPJ
I do like that.
did not play yesterday. He got 13 minutes in his final game with the Clippers, but he was
Oh,
at
I
the
looked at
DNP yesterday.
okay. Well, ominous. For
Yeah.
sure. For sure. Okay. Either way, though, if KPJ drew the start, I'd feel pretty good about him at 4K, but we'll see what happens with that. Moving on here to the other point guard options. There's a lot to like. Anthony Edwards, if he's back, 9.7K. Don't love the matchup against the Cavs here, but he projects well. LaMelo is probably the better play in that range at 9.9K. I like him quite a bit, especially just compared to like SG. I'd rather get to LaMelo here. There's Kyrie with no brow. There's Trae Young, not loving that against the Magic. But point is, a lot of options. I think I would start at LaMelo if Dame is out. Where are you going here?
Kind of like Curry again, still under 9K. He's come back around over the past few games, maybe rejuvenated with Jimmy in there now. Playing Milwaukee, who's a great matchup for high usage guards, even with Dame in. And if he's out, I imagine they won't get any better defensively. So 8-7, I'm still willing to play Curry quite a bit. Even into ownership, I think it's fine. De'Aaron Fox at 8-3 against Washington should certainly be on the radar. He's played well since coming to San Antonio. Looks like he'll be popular. I don't really have an issue with that. Not really getting to the LaMelo types as of now. I will probably get some just because of his nuclear ceiling. Similar case with like Kyrie against Sacramento without AD, of course. It's a pretty stacked position. I think you can make a compelling case for most of these guys, but I think Steph beyond Dame, if Dame is out, is the one I have my eye on the most.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Steph. Really like the projection for sure. The matchup is good. Price is fine. The only problem with him is he's like only been good like very recently. He was like dog shit for a while there. Like you said, could be a little bit of revitalization here with Jimmy. So I think he's a fine play. I think if he's going to start picking up ownership, I might start to look, to get away from that. I think then De'Aaron Fox at lower ownership, weirdly, and cheaper price, I think he becomes more appealing. I would have expected coming in that De'Aaron Fox would be really owned, but at 10%, that's not enough on a 9-game slate if things are going to stay the way they are. The other thing is Curry does have a questionable tag, so if that sticks, that'd be something to monitor. Working down here, Jordan Poole looks really good again, 7.1K. Obviously, coming across on the other side from the Spurs, not the most amazing matchup, but if the game stays close and you have interest in Wemby or Fox or both, then you might want to come back. And Poole projects really well for 7.1K. Like in that same price range, you're looking at Malik Monk, or the same projection range, you're looking at Monk and Garland and Hero, Jamal Murray. Like he just looks like a better play than those guys, dollar for dollar. Moving on down, Drew Holiday is out, so Derek White and Peyton Pritchard look pretty good here anyways, but also Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are iffy. So if one or both of those guys are out, Derek White and Pritchard might be core plays, to be honest. They look fine right now as things stand, and my lean would be Pritchard. How are you feeling about that mid-range and as we go down to value here?
Yeah, I'm getting a little bit of White right now. That would obviously increase quite a bit if Brown or Tatum sit, or both, of course. Pritchard, less so. I think White, we haven't really seen the ceiling in a while, but he's steady enough. He would get a big boost if those guys are out, obviously. So even against Miami, I have no problem with that. The Spurs have been horrible defensively for like 2 or 3 weeks now, so I really don't hate the matchup for Poole. Carrington is another value, even at 5K. Like the minutes for him have been through the roof. Even with Brogdon back the other night, he still played 38. So if they're going to prioritize getting the youths some minutes, I think Carrington at 5K is once again a very strong play. Pajemski is someone at 4.9 who's still playable even if Curry's in. He still played 29 minutes in the last game, the first one with Jimmy after the trade. So he's still going to have a role. Like we said, the matchup is good for Golden State against Milwaukee. So Pajemski, even if Curry's in, looks good. If Curry's out, he's probably a smash. So great play either way, I think. Other than that, it's like Jose Alvarado, another one at 5K. New Orleans is without DeJounte and CJ McCollum, and obviously Brandon Ingram is gone. They don't have Bruce Brown. I don't know what's up with that, but he's not with team apparently. So pretty thin in the backcourt. The matchup against OKC is the Stone Woat, but he's cheap. He's good per minute. He's going to have a role. So a bunch of guys in the 5K range look really good as of now.
Yeah, there's also more value to be had with somebody like Rob Dillingham if Mike Conley is out. Also keep an eye on, of course, the status of Anthony Edwards. That could be a big deal there. And if Curry is out, Moses Moody at 3.8K would look a little bit better as well. Obviously, with you and Pajemski, solid play anyways. Really, really good play. Probably a core play if Curry ends up missing. Don't think anything else really needs to be said. I think Jamal Murray is back, so we're not looking at Nuggets point guard punts or anything like that. Anything else in like the mid range that you feel compelled to play here?
You can always play Monk. You can always play Garland. I think Hero's questionable, so that could open up something like Rozier on the other side of that Boston game. Revenge game for Rozier.
Yeah, I wonder if he had everybody bet the unders today.
Yeah, he's taking his own unders again tonight. Like I said, I think Kyrie's pretty good too at the high end. Not going to be owned. That game looks pretty good. Sacramento, Dallas, high total, tight spread. No
1
one's
point
really
spread
popping from an ownership standpoint, so I don't hate getting exposure to that on either side.
No, I'm not going to force it, but I agree. It's a pretty good spot for sure. All right, moving over to shooting guard. We have it's not really as bad as it usually is. 9 games, I guess. Anthony Edwards, if he's in, even against the Cavs on the road, he projects pretty darn well. I don't mind getting to him if he's active, but De'Aaron Fox and Jaylen Brown project better, dollar for dollar. They look like better plays. De'Aaron Fox, it's really going to be tough to get away from him. I am super surprised that the ownership is not higher than what is projected to be. Maybe that's just, it's too early in the day for it to be accurate, but he looks awesome. Probably the first guy I'd go to here. The second guy I'd go to is Trey Murphy with no McCollum. He looks awesome per usual. He's been on a heater. Just look what he's been doing here. I mean, his floor lately is 42. Yeah, his price doesn't really budge much either. It's always 8.2 or 8.3 at this point. So he looks really good. Ignore CJ McCollum. He will not be playing. Probably it up top for me. Those are the 2 guys I'm looking at the most. Like I said, Edwards, if in, you can certainly live YOLO in DFS and play him despite the not so great matchup. But Fox and Murphy are my priorities there.
Yeah, I would add Jaylen Brown if he's in, especially if he's in and Tatum's not.
Right.
He projects pretty well with Drew already out. So at 8K, I don't mind it. I think Fox is probably more appealing in the same range, but you can have Brown in a player pool always. Other than that, it's kind of mid-range or punting at this spot for me.
Yeah, so speaking of that, I mean, nobody here, I think maybe Bilal Coulibaly, just because the minutes, he looks okay at 6.2K. Like I said, Pritchard before, if either of those Boston guys miss, he's going to look better. Derek White, that's a nice projection for 6.3. So the mid-range is okay, but it starts to get gross and hurry to the point where we might want to go all the way down. Nick Smith Jr. is questionable, and LaMelo's in, not really eager to do that.
I like that. I like him quite a bit. He's only 4K. The price came down. He's guard forward. They're without Josh Green. They traded Cody Martin. They don't have a Kogi. They're super thin. They have a bunch of guys questionable also. So Nick Smith gets a good value. And then, it's Glenn who's been better defensively, but I'm not really scared of the spot. I think pretty good fellow. He's been efficient shooting, but at 4K, you don't really need him to go off to pay off.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, they had Seth Curry play a ton of minutes, and he went off with 26 real points yesterday. So there's that. Yeah, I mean, they are missing bodies. So I guess he's okay with the price coming down. I just don't feel great about it, especially since he's questionable currently. There are other values too, though. There's Gary Trent Jr., who went off yesterday. He's 3.9K. If Dame's out, he's going to, again, have decent usage. Not very reliable, and he's very scoring dependent, so I don't love it, but I do not mind the price and the increased role. There's also Jordan Hawkins at 4.2K with no McCollum. Somebody, I'd prefer he be a little bit cheaper, but somebody like that, like a cheap option with the extra usage floating around for the Pelicans, that is still pretty interesting. And a couple other guys I'll mention are Duncan Robinson and Julian Strawther. Strawther could have an expanded role with MPJ questionable, and obviously Watson and Russ already out. He played 38 minutes last game, so he could be in for a ton of minutes here at that price. I'm definitely interested in taking that dive. And then the other guy I mentioned was Duncan Robinson, just because Hero is questionable. Plus, they have no Jaime Jaquez. So him and Jovic could end up getting a lot of extra usage here for the Heat.
They do have Wiggins, though, so that's another bother.
Yeah.
That,
I just don't know what to. I don't know what to make of Wiggins in their offense now. It's true.
I just assume he's going to play 30 minutes or so right away. So losing Jaquez, probably not a net, gain for anyone else, I would say.
No. I mean, if Jaquez and Hero are out, I think that gives them enough of a boost at those prices to consider.
Yeah, Jordan Hawkins really crushed in the last game with 0 fantasy points in 18 minutes. I do think he's
Yes.
a fine play. Just
Oh my
he
gosh.
he can get hot. He's happy to shoot. The matchup's horrible though, so I do think the guys like Carrington, Pajemski, Nick Smith, even Buddy Hield, I don't mind at 4.8. Not great, but okay enough. Max Christie, another 5K guy. He's been really good since he got to Dallas. I don't know how sustainable it is, but he's playing a different role than he did with the Lakers. He might just be, better than he looked before. Banking on him just being a more efficient producer now is not unreasonable. So at 5K with guard forward, I think he's perfectly viable again today. I think he's questionable, but if he's in, obviously, you're playing him.
How do you feel about Seth Curry at 3.5 if Nick Smith Jr. is out?
Pretty bad. Pretty bad. I
I
understand it, but
I think he's
Seth
still in.
Curry, I do not trust him at all. So not a priority.
I know, but like you said, there's a lack of bodies in Charlotte. If Nick Smith Jr. joins that pile, I think Seth is in play. I would not make him a core play, but
I don't know. Seth Curry on a back-to-back sounds like a disaster waiting to happen.
And to wrap up this position, Ryan Rollins is shooting guard eligible too, which is really nice. This is the first time I've seen that for him that I can recall. So if Dame is out, you can play him all over the place. So that's kind of cool. All right, over at small forward we go. Jason Tatum leads the way. We don't know if he's going to play yet. Miami's not the brutal matchup they used to be. So I think he's fine for tournaments. Not a priority for me at all. Franz Wagner against the Hawks. Sign me up for that. That sounds pretty good. He's coming off a big 58-point fantasy outing. So he is feeling it. 8.5K is not too expensive for him. He looks really good. Jalen Williams, he projects really well and his prices come down and he's facing the Pels. So that all looks great. Don't love that Chet is back. That certainly is going to hurt his upside, but he still looks good here. We already like Jalen. We already like Curry Murphy. Jimmy Butler does not project amazingly, but if Curry were to be out, Jimmy would look pretty damn good at 7.9K.
Yeah, I think he's fine. It's hard to project the guy in a new situation like this, but Jimmy obviously has a ceiling, even if Curry's in. I don't hate that. Not my favorite play on this slate. I do think Jalen Williams is pretty good if the ownership's going to be reasonable. I don't know if it will be, but by the time lock rolls around, I would have a hard time believing he'd be 20% owned. So I like that a good bit. Franz Wagner, I agree completely. The matchup's really good for him. I don't know if he'll get Dyson in that spot, but either way, I think it's a good play. Going down a little bit, I think PJ, if he's in, is fine. No AD, so the usage should return for him, I would think. Kyle Kuzma is probably the headliner here at 5,300. He was 3,800 yesterday, which was kind of an error, but started over Bobby Portis, which was unexpected, played pretty well. Portis still got there anyway off the bench. So both those guys are going to be awesome plays. They're probably core plays for me again today, even with Kuz's price hike.
Yeah, they're already. I put in core plays in our Discord early. Obviously, things change as we know, but right now, and even especially with Dame out, they remain core plays. Bobby and Kuz together. Dame is in my core for now, so we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, Kuz looks great. Price is way up from yesterday, but that is basically meaningless. His price is too cheap for the role he's going to have. I do not hate Cam Johnson at 6.2. His minutes are climbing up. Nets don't really have a lot of guys. If D'Lo's also out, he looks kind of good against the Hornets here. Kind of like a mild minute limit here for him, but he played 30 minutes this last game. I don't think it's the worst play at 6.2K. Jaden McDaniels is definitely overpriced for the matchup and for his role if Ant is back. He crushed though.
I mean, if Ant and Julius are out, someone has to get the usage, and the two times we've seen that in the last week, he's been the one. So viable
if Ant is out, I do like Jaden McDaniels. But obviously, if Ant is in, he's overpriced. Keyshawn George, right in there, kind of with the Bub Carrington thing you were saying, just cheap Wizards guys they're getting minutes, they're getting a bunch of run. And Keyshawn George, while not really the best real life player, if he's getting 30+ minutes, he is producing. So I don't hate him. I think he's a good value at 4.3. It's just going to be interesting on a 9-game slate. Do we really need to go play Keyshawn George? I don't know. We'll find out. Christian Brown remains a big minute guy with actually a pretty darn good floor and ceiling considering who he is. Pretty good matchup here with the Blazers. He's going to get big minutes with Russ and Peyton Watson out. And of course, if MPJ is also out, just more usage coming his way. What the hell's going on with Denny Avdia?
I don't know. It sucks.
Well, in theory, Denny is a fine play at the price at 6.6K. And if Jeremy Grant, who is questionable, ends up not playing, I think we can consider him. But I am probably just going to be off of Denny until he shows signs of life. Because look at this.
I don't know. With a guy like that, I feel like the thing to do is to keep playing him and then be the one on him at low ownership when he does find it again. Because if he finds it again and you're not on him and then everyone's on him the next time, like you're not really getting paid in that scenario. So I don't mind taking shots on these guys who are in poor form because people see the game logs and they're scared off of it, like Wemby potentially. And time to play them is now when they're in pretty good spots.
I agree with that logic. Only when I actually feel good about the minutes, though. Like what Denny's minutes are being jerked around left and right. If Jeremy isn't in, I will try out Denny, despite the lack of stability there. Like Wemby though, like Wemby is a superstar. He's going to play. So like not playing Wemby because he's 11K and Fox is like coming in and like showing his dominance or whatever. To me, that's not a good reason to not play Wemby. Like that's 2 games. It's a small sample size. Eventually, Wemby's going to be Wemby again. And I want to be on that when that happens. I would imagine Denny will be Denny again too. It just, for me, it's going to take Jeremy or somebody else missing for me to take that shot again, probably. Najee at 4.8 looks like a pretty good value if Anthony Davis is out. I believe PJ Washington is also questionable.
Anthony Davis is out for like a month.
I mean, no, I know Anthony Davis is out. I mean, I meant PJ Washington. Anthony Davis, that trade is just looking more laughable by the day. But yeah, I know Anthony Davis is out. PJ Washington is questionable. So if PJ is also out, Najee is going to look awesome at 4.8K. I think he's okay as things stand just because no Brow and no Lively currently. But he would just look way, way better. I think we already mentioned Gary Trent, just worth a GPP play at 3.9 with if Dame is out. And if you see anybody else down here, 4.9. I don't think that's too expensive if Edwards remains out. I already mentioned Rob Dillingham in case Conley is out. Crushed last game with no Edwards. So even though the matchup is not great, I would be willing to go back to the well at 4.9K if Edwards doesn't play.
Yeah, if Edwards is in, I have zero interest.
But for sure.
If he's out, he's an awesome play.
100%. All right, you see any other values down here at small forward that you have interest in?
We didn't really touch on Vassell, but I think at 6.3 against Washington, he's viable. Probably not going to be any ownership on him with Fox and Wemby being the priorities, but I think Vassell's an okay mid-range guy.
I would say that is forever the case indeed. Yeah, it's just really interesting because the Spurs have basically turned into a 2-person usage team with Fox and Wemby there, but that's not always going to be the case. So at no ownership and a pretty reasonable price in the best matchup of the slate, I don't hate it. I think it's okay. All right, power forward Tatum is still there leading the way. We have a lot of guys who are discussed. Banchero is pretty interesting. This is another case like kind of what we were just talking about with Denny and Wemby. I want to be on Banchero when he finally is Banchero again. It hasn't worked out for me. I played a lot of Banchero over the last 3 weeks, and it's gone horribly. But he's facing the Hawks. It's possible, like you said, Dyson Daniels is on Franz. Could this be the time to hop on Banchero?
I have him a ton. I have a lot more of him than Wagner as of now, which doesn't feel great. But, we know what he's capable of. He was crushing until he had his oblique injury. And since then, he's been pretty mediocre. I don't know if he's still injured. So there is risk. But at 8.3, you're arguably getting an underpay on him. I like him a lot. This position has a lot to like in general. I think Zion in the same range, given the Pelicans injury issues, is fine, even against OKC. Bobby Portis, of course, without Giannis, smash play. Kuzma, like we talked about, smash play. J-Dub, I don't mind. And there's even mid-range stuff. Like Aaron Gordon has come around a little bit. He's still only 5'1". Jeremy Grant, if he's in, is playing huge minutes. He's 5'5", revenge game. Yeah. Naz Reid, almost 7K, but without Ant, he's just been a consistent source of, without Julius, he's been a consistent source of minutes and production. So even at a pretty high salary for him, I have no issue paying that for him right now.
Yeah, I think we're pretty aligned here. If you just look at, at the game logs, then no, you don't want to play Banchero. But as far as like getting on top of a guy who's probably not going to have a ton of ownership and he's in a great spot and his prices come down, like everything actually looks good for Banchero. He just needs to hit. I love him at 8.3 for tournaments. Right now he's carrying a little bit of ownership. So if that like spikes, I might sour. Maybe I'll pivot to Zion or something. Problem with Zion is like he just doesn't play enough. And the matchup sucks. So I think between the two, I'm leaning Banchero here, but I understand why you'd want to play Zion with even more usage with no CJ there. Bobby, that's a core play for me. He looks awesome, especially if Dame is out, looks even better. Might not start, but don't really care. I really like Naz Reid as things stand, even if Edwards is back. 6.9K. He's just priced just about right. You could still argue he's too cheap for who he's been lately. Matchup on the road with Cavs, not great. If Edwards is out, like, how do you not play Naz Reid even at that price? He looks really good. I like him a lot.
I think you can fade him just because the position is so strong, and if he's
Yeah.
going to be super owned against the Cavs,
Well, right
that's an
now he's
argument
not
to
really
fade.
owned at all.
I'm
But
saying
yeah,
if Edwards is out, he will
right.
be.
Yeah.
I see him at 20% anyway, so like he's still kind of getting some attraction. So don't hate the fade if he's going to be mega chalk or anything like that.
No, I mean, right now, if he's already chalky, like if Edwards is in and he's going to be 20% on for some reason, I have no problem getting away from that at all. I have no problem going up and getting Banchero or even Zion, or just play Bobby there and move on and do something else. I have no problem with that. All right, any other values? You mentioned Aaron Gordon. I'm okay with that based off the injuries, and he starts and gets about 30 plus minutes usually. Not excited about it because he's mostly been bad since he got back. But is there anybody else like below him that you feel good about as far as values?
Not really. Like Najee, you talked about, he could get better later on. Al Horford, not for me. Corey Kispert is okay at 5-1. Prefer Aaron Gordon between the two at the same price, but Kispert has a role with them shorthanded. If Keyshawn is out again, he would look a little better. And I think Keyshawn again is a pretty good play if he's in.
Yep. And we touched on Keyshawn. I think he's totally fine at 4.3, even though it doesn't ever feel good. Javonte Green season, 3.3K with a little bit extra usage opening up.
Nope.
We'll see. All right, at center, Wemby leads the way with the best projection of the entire slate, and he just edges out Jokic. So dollar for dollar, he is a better play than Jokic on the slate. That said, if Jokic is going to be unowned again, of course I have a little bit of interest in Jokic going up against the Blazers. That would be the ultimate hammer play of the slate. I just never really actually believe Jokic is going to be that low owned. Right now, well, what's the updated ownership on Wemby?
I see 7%, but there's no way that's accurate.
Well, that's insane. If he's sub 10% owned,
if Dame is in and people are doing like a balance build, maybe, but I don't think he'll be that unowned. I assume it'll be
where's Jokic
in
at?
the double
Obviously,
digits.
this 3% isn't accurate.
Let's see. Where is Jokic? I see him at 3.
That's where he's at here too. Okay. So yeah, if Jokic, I know he's pushing 13K. He hasn't like really been completely himself as far as his ceiling goes lately, but like 70-ish, like I'm okay with that. Like that's not bad. And he has a massive upside where he can do even more damage than that. So I don't mind Jokic if he's going to be completely unowned. If I had to pick between the two, it's going to be Wemby. He's facing the Wizards, still only 11K. And I actually think his ownership could stay down regardless of what happens to Dame because of the narrative we've been talking about. I think you kind of disagree there because it's Wemby. But honestly, people are like, oh, Fox is wrecking. Now Wemby won't be as good. That's not going to last forever. So especially in a smash spot against the Wizards, I'm going to just bet on Wemby being Wemby here. That's what I'm doing up top. Sabonis is in play. But I just would rather get to Wemby if I'm going to pay up. Mark Williams is not in. So Nurk alert season, 3.9K Nurk. How do you feel about
that? Yeah, it's okay. If Diabate is out, I would have a lot more interest. But if Nurk's just the backup to Diabate, like it's fine, but not something I'm going to prioritize on this.
Oh, slate. Yeah. 100%. We got burned by Diabate last night. Or yesterday. So yeah, I agree. I need him out. I need Nurk to be starting, but 3.9K Nurk starting, that would be a core play for me. Other guys that do look good, Bam's okay. Porzingis looks good. Evan Mobley is fine. I really like Daniel Gafford if PJ Washington's out. Kind of like him anyways because there's no Brow. Gafford's been a machine for a while now, and they will need his size against Sabonis. Certainly at risk of getting into foul trouble. But he looks really good at 7.4K. If you don't want to go get Wemby or Jokic, that's the first guy I would look to. Ayton is okay at 6.7K. I don't really like playing guys against Jokic. There's always foul trouble concern. I believe he wrecked against Denver last time he played them, though. Like 48 fantasy points or something. I could be wrong. Let me see. Yeah, 48. So he can have success in this matchup. There are other guys lower down there who don't project really well, but they kind of feel like they're a little bit too cheap. Okongwu, Rudy Gobert has been really good. Jared Allen at 6.4K. Khalil Ware, Brooke with extra usage with no Giannis and possibly no Dame. I'm okay with landing on any of those guys. Where are you at with those guys?
Not getting to any of them. I think Gafford's the one I like the most as well.
Yeah.
7,400 without AD. Decent enough matchup against Sacramento. Like we said, the game has a high total and a close spread, so I don't mind getting pieces of that. Hartenstein's prices come down, but with Chet, back, the usage for him is going to be pretty low. I don't mind a buy low on that against New Orleans, who doesn't protect the rim at all. Aaron Gordon talked about, Portis, core play, Rashawn Holmes, decent value again, starting lately with Valanciunas gone and Sarr still out. San Antonio, it's not ideal that he's facing Wemby, but he's a good per minute guy anyway. I think he's okay enough. And then 4K Quentin Post, I think you can play again against Milwaukee. I think he's just kind of a good player at 4K. That's a good per minute guy, and we've seen some upside from him. So on a slate without a lot of amazing cheap values so far, I think he's perfect.
Oh boy, Quentin Post season, huh? He doesn't really get enough minutes to really make me feel great about it. They do still have Kevon Looney. They can still go small with Draymond Green. He does things to make him valuable on DK at that price for sure. So I don't hate it. It's not the worst, especially if your Nurk is going to be really chalky. You don't want to play Nurk. That's a direct pivot from Nurk, so you can do that. All right. That does it for our position by position breakdown. Let's end things with our flag plant of the day and our overall strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to pay up for Wemby if I could. I assume there will be enough value to do so. By the time lock rolls around, Milwaukee stuff could open up even further. You're going to be playing multiple Bucks. So I think running it back with Steph or Jimmy or whoever, Pajemski on the Golden State side makes a lot of sense, especially if the Warriors are not going to be super popular on a big slate. Other than that, I guess my flag plant would be Banchero. I'm just going to keep buying low until he finally hits. Atlanta's a good spot for him to do that. No Jalen Johnson. They traded DeAndre Hunter. They're a bit weaker all around now than they were before. So I'm hoping this is a spot where Paolo finally finds it.
Okay, well, you kind of stole all my potential flag plants. I'll say, I'm very much into Wemby. I think if there's going to be a world here where he's not owned, that's crazy to me. I really like him a lot. Really like Banchero as well. I don't feel like I have to force the Warriors thing. I just, especially if, obviously Curry's out. I don't know. Pod would be tough to avoid for sure. I think if you're not going to pay at center, my flag plant would be Gafford. I think right now, as things are constructed, if Diabate is out, I want Nurk, and right now I also want Wemby. So my own build is probably going to start with those two guys. Might be popular at the end of the day too, so keep that in mind. But if you don't want to get Jokic or Wemby, I think Gafford looks like an absolute smash. So I like him a lot. The other one's going to be LaMelo. Like, if LaMelo has one of the best ceilings that you can ask for and one of the best projections of the slate, there's no Brandon Miller. They're down a bunch of guys in general. The Nets play slow, but LaMelo can change that all on his own, and the Nets are not a bad matchup defensively. So if LaMelo is just going to be like completely overlooked, not even 10K here, he's really appealing to me. So I like the idea of pairing him with Wemby currently. But as we know, things can change, and they've already been changing today. So the best way to combat that is obviously watching this video every day, but also coming into our Discord, which you can do for free. And you can get our updated core plays for the slate also currently for free. If you play FanDuel, you can get our FanDuel picks on Patreon. Our DK Night picks are also on Patreon, so make sure you take advantage of that. But yeah, hopefully this helps you out. And if it does in any way, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and good luck.